Welcome to the Journeyman Cave, a podcast where we meet and chat with some of boxing's most seasoned road warriors, hosted by Mark Shakespeare and Chris Scarfe.
Welcome back to the Journeyman Cave, everybody. It's round 39, and with me as always, my very good friend, Mr. Mark Shakespeare. How are you doing?
Yes, all good, thank you, mate.
A good one this week. I mean, they all are, but this is a very good one. Our very first trainer.
Yeah, the MBE himself, Mr. Glyn Rhodes, aren't we?
It was brilliant.
Oh, God, amazing person, mate. Another one who could have talked for hours if we had the time, but an absolute legend in the game and been mentioned many a times on the show. When I asked him if he wanted to come on the show, I expected him to tell me to, I don't swear much, but I wanted him to fuck off, really, to be quite honest. But no, we were well up for it, and I think, obviously, with interviewing Carl Wilde and Billy Boyle, two former fighters who we trained, and they spoke very highly of him. And when they said you had to get him on, he's got some stories, and they were definitely right. He had some stories, but also a little bit emotional at times as well when you were talking about certain things, which I will not go into much. You'll know about it when you go into the episode. And the guy's just a true legend, mate, in the sport, and it was an absolute honour to meet him, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, and do you know what? Not trying to give too much away, but what the thing about this one is, we barely talked about his fighting career, did we?
We never had
touched
time
on it. No, well, that's it. We had that much to get through. Well, that we did get through. I remember it getting to the end, and I'm thinking, we've not even gone through his record like we normally, as you normally would. But we didn't need to.
No, nowhere near.
Fascinating. We aren't even having to go that.
And it's nice for listeners as well to get a different point of view from a trainer's point of view as well. It's almost stringing us bow, really, moving forward, mate. And I think we did really well. And it was a good interview.
It were. I mean, there's not stopping us getting him back and going through his career for another one.
Well, I think he probably will come back. I mean, to be quite honest, I thought he was in France and he won't come in. And I got a phone call at 8 o'clock in the morning saying, I wish you'd on today for 1 o'clock, Mark.
Yeah.
So it made it even better, really, mate. Sometimes off the cuff's the better ones.
That's it. Very, very true. So hopefully we'll get him back in future. But until then, let's go and speak to him for his first interview.
Let's go and do it, mate. 1979, your debut then?
Yeah. Adelphi Hotel, Liverpool.
Yeah.
Yeah, long time. Had a great career.
I did, mate, didn't I?
Long time. I didn't want a job, see, so I thought I'd better just stay boxing.
Is anybody who stands out in the career, I thought, mate?
Oh, God, some good ones, isn't it?
There is, I mean...
Andy Olligan went on to box Julio Cesar Chavez in Mexico City. Tony Acubia, British European Commonwealth champion, weren't he? Steve Sims, I knocked Steve Sims out. After I knocked him out, he went on to be British champion. I knocked out Kevin Pritchard. After I knocked him out, he went to be on British champion. There was another one.
They've been queuing up to fight, did they?
Fucking hell.
Get knocked out.
I knock them out and then they go on to do really well.
That's it.
Right, laugh.
What hardest puncher I fought, or anyone with thee?
Fucking hell.
Anyone sticks out for thee?
They all fucking hit hard, don't they? Fucking I got chinned a few times. I got done in first round by a crap kid called Bobby Welburn in Hull.
Yeah.
He just ran out, hit me on chin, bang. Same again with a kid called Kevin Pritchard. Kevin Sheehan, who were bombers, mate. He ran out, just stuck it on me first round.
It happens, doesn't it?
I think I was a slow starter.
Yes.
Once I got going, I was all right. But it was like I say, it's what it is, what it is.
To warm up a bit.
Yeah, get warmed.
Well, I thought Gary Logan in
the last fight, that was disgusting. Reason that was disgusting, again, Brendan, unofficial, a box kick a few days before, I think it was 10 days before, called Mark Chikoke, who was area champion, Northern area champion. I got my eye cut that way. Usually when you get cut, you get them cut this way.
Yeah.
This one I got cut that way. And then Brendan got me a fight with Gary Logan about 10 days later. He said, you'll be all right, you'll be all right. You know, I got stopped in the second round. As soon as he hit me with a jab, I felt blood running down my face. And I thought, what have I done that for?
Yeah.
And that was me done then. I thought, if I'm going to do that, I might as well just forget about it. You can't just box somebody like Gary Logan, who's a good fighter.
Yeah.
10 days notice, after coming after, I'd won against that Chikoke, but I got my eye cut 10 days later, I think, something like that. You can't do it, you just can't do that against good kids like that.
Tell you what though, mate, I mean, like you said, it's some career that lad there, mate.
Box all over, didn't it?
Listen, we've got 33 wins, 20 by KO.
I know.
So I must have been able to bang a bit, mate.
Yeah,
You
I
know
used
what I
to try
mean?
and bang because I thought I don't want to end up having to go full distance. Yeah, I could always punch a little bit.
27 losses, 14 KOs. I bet a lot of them weren't
some of
KOs,
them,
obviously.
Yeah, I do it. Some of them are right.
We always talk about how they never.
I got done in France.
Yeah.
That were stupid. But they put it down as a KO. I got done in Italy, and no, that was disqualification in Italy
Right.
for rolling too low.
Eh?
I got done a few times. So I look down. If I got knocked out, I'll tell you I got knocked out. But on some of them, I don't know why it says knocked out because I weren't knocked out.
Yeah, a lot of them is when we always try and get that in me and
Yeah.
Scarfe because people just look at records and they might see 15 KOs
Yeah.
and they think that's being sparked on
Knocked
the
out
arse.
15 times. What's he say against that Gary Logan fight?
Gary Logan fight,
Last one.
yeah, it just says TKO, I think. No, it just says, doesn't say TKO, it just says Dave Parris, 2 minutes 22,
Stop the fight.
lost TKO.
Right, yeah. Technically.
So what it a TKO, just a cut then?
Well, I got cut.
Yeah.
But he dropped me as well. And then when I got up, referee saw it and just stopped
You
it.
see, sometimes on these it'll say Glyn Rhodes dropped in round 2.
Yeah.
It's not saying that
Yeah.
on here, like.
Yeah.
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
But like you said, mate, I mean, it's some career lads had there, mate.
It is.
I mean,
And the places I boxed, Italy twice, France twice, Portugal, Ireland twice. So I had some good times.
Travelling, then.
Yeah, I've been around a bit, haven't I?
but I definitely want one of his usual journeymen, mate, with a record like that, mate. I mean, we haven't got many. We're definitely on one hand, haven't we, how many winning records we've had on this show, mate.
yeah.
But that's not what we're about.
And I'm probably the best looking you've had on.
Yeah. I dare say I'm better looking than Carl and Billy, that's for sure.
Anybody's better looking than Billy.
But do you want to ask you about Billy's question?
Well, yes. So we were in touch with Billy.
Yeah, you would do,
And
wouldn't
yeah,
you?
I know you've already off the air. We've already prefaced this, but yes, he did ask, why wouldn't you teach him to duck or jab?
Right, well, when Billy joined me, he'd been boxing in Paras, and they do something in Paras and Forces called milling, where the bell rings and you have to throw punches bell to bell. And so when Billy started training with us and I started trying to teach him to jab, it just won't work. Because what happened is the bell would ring, he'd start punching, and the bell would ring and he'd stop. And he said, Billy, you ain't got to punch bell to bell.
Yeah.
Try doing this, try doing that. But no, might as well talk to that wall. He didn't know how to throw a jab and he didn't know how to move his head. But that's not my fault. That's down to military service and milling in the Paras that he were in. But I had some good times with Billy.
Yeah, he speaks very highly, and does Billy. I mean, one of the reasons we got you in Glyn when we had Carl and Billy, they both says, will you do us a favour when you get Glyn? And I says, I don't know if you want to come on our show because it's a bit too special for us.
Oh, I'm special, all right. Listen, yeah, special case, yeah.
But finish the question off that Billy also said
Yes.
as well.
So the second part to this question.
Go on.
And he said, why did you used to hit him so much at the end of each round?
To wake him up, usually. You know, he'd be like in corner. I remember once he boxed in Manchester, and on the bell to end the round, he got done with a body shot. And he come back to the corner holding his breath. And he sat down, and the first thing he said to me when he sat down, he went, don't fucking stop the fight, because he was just getting his breath back. So I give him a, come on, let's get going again. But I remember that, yeah, a great body shot, bang on bell, done him with a body shot. And he didn't go down, but he walked back to the corner. It was once he sat down, and he exhaled, and that's what he said to me, don't stop the fight. I went, all right, just going to give you a crack, get out of here. Yeah, but I had some good times with Billy, some memorable occasions.
Well, I'm going to just get in first with it. So Mark gave me your book about 2 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
I think he was longer, Glenn. I think he's
Right.
slacking.
It's no more than 3.
Slow reader.
I'm never.
Well, don't worry about it, because I've not read it myself. If that's anything to go on, I have not actually read the book as a book myself.
It's just finding time is
it
impossible.
is.
But
It is.
you have mentioned it's coming out an audiobook.
It's
and
coming out
I
on
do get to
audiobook.
listen to them, so
Yeah.
I'm going to buy it.
Yeah, I'm working with a guy now, Brian. He's on. It's a bit scientific for me, AI, whatever. But it's coming out on audio, which is good, because a lot of my friends aren't type of blokes that will sit down and read a book. So although it has done very, very well, and at one point it were doing really well on Amazon, it were really high up. You know, 'cause I think people read it thinking it's going to be a boxing book, and then when you get into it, it's everything but. It's mainly about what happened in Scott and things like that, and what it did to me, and that kind of thing. So it'll be good to come out on audio, because if it has the same impact that it had as it has as a book, I'll be well pleased with that.
Yeah. Well, I think it will, because the first thing, I always say to people, have you read that Journeyman book that's come out?
Yeah.
And they'll say, first thing they always say to me, a lot of people, a bit like me, a bit like Scarfe and yourself and lads you know, they're not really big readers.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I will read, like he says. First thing they always say to me, lads, is, can you get it on audio book?
Yeah.
So I think when that comes out yours on audio, I think it'll go down really, really well.
I do. Well, fingers crossed. I hope so, because like I say, I'm not the type of bloke, I've read very few books, mainly because I find it hard to sit down and concentrate. And then what I find myself doing is I'll read the book or I'll read a page, and then you'll ask me what I've read and I haven't got a clue, because my mind just drifts off to something else. I've got overactive mind, or whatever you call it. So I'm not very good at reading. So like I say, I read it as Mark Turley did, the guy who wrote the book. He'd send me an email, and so a few pages long, and I'd read it and I'd send it back to him and say, no, don't put that in, or yes, that's okay, or no, that's how I actually read it. But as a book, I've not actually sat down and read it as a book. So it'd be good to sit and listen to it on audio. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I used to be a ravenous reader. I was always reading, and like you said, you sit down now, and you pick up a book, and within 2 minutes, my phone's been pinging.
Exactly.
You just can't stop. So at work, I've always got my earphones in.
Yeah.
So as soon as it's available, I'll have that on. Do you know when it is coming out an audiobook?
No, he's just texted me as I've got here now. Brian's just texted me, and he's uploaded the first chapter. So it's not going to be that long.
Right.
I mean, I've let you listen to a little bit yourself. And for me, it's my words, but it sounds really strange listening to yourself saying what you've said. So, but it'll give people an insight. So for all the people who've not been able to read the book for whatever reason, it'll give them an insight into my career, what happened, and where we're at, and how I've got to where I'm at today.
It's been a long road for you, mate, hasn't it?
Oh, God, yeah.
I mean, like you say, it's 30 years next year as your gym's open.
And that's just the gym. Don't forget, my journey started at 16 when I met Brendan Ingle. So the 30-year anniversary party that we've got next year, that's just 30 years of the gym.
Yeah.
My career started when I was 16, which is a long time ago. So I've kind of like had 3 lives, me, like a cat has 9 lives. I had my life from being born up to being 16. Then I started with Brendan from 16 to 33, and at 33 to present day. So I've had 3 different kind of like chapters of my life, all different. And it's been rock and roll, tell you the truth.
Yeah, you've had some ups and you've had some downs, mate, haven't you?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people talk about all the ups and and stuff, but you've had some bad times, haven't you, mate, as well?
Yeah, like I said to you earlier, I've been involved in a lot of... this sport, to me, is the best sport in the world. But I've also been involved in a lot of tragedies involved in the sport. The first one being I boxed on the undercard when Michael Watson got beat by Chris Eubanks. And I remember I was stood in the tunnel at White Hart Lane, and what an occasion, what a show to box on. I mean, obviously not come to watch me, but just to be on that kind of platform. And I remember stood in the aisle as they brought Michael Watson out of the ring on the stretcher, and I remember looking, and kind of like sends a shiver down your spine that you luckily had gone on before Michael got injured. And then obviously it took him a long time to get back, and thank God he's back up and running, he's all right. So that was probably my first taste of how dangerous boxing is. And you do ask yourself questions. You do think to yourself, that could have been me. Thank God, Michael pulled through and everything. But yeah, you do ask yourself questions. And then since then, there's been 1 or 2 others. As I said, the first guy I ever trained to box for a British title was a kid called Richie Wenton. I love Richie to bits. It was the first time I'd ever trained anybody to box for a British title. And it was the famous York called Bethnal Green. He boxed a kid called Bradley Stone, and he won. And so you're celebrating, because I'm a young trainer. I think I was only about 34 at the time.
That must have been really good for you.
To be 34-year-old, you're training a kid who's just won British title.
That's amazing.
But then you've got the downside, because next day we'd planned a party and whatever to celebrate, and you find out that Bradley's been took into hospital and he's in a coma, and then a short period after that, you find out that he's died. So you can't really celebrate Richie winning his British title, because obviously his opponent's died. So again, you ask yourself questions, what's it all about, so on and so on. And then, life goes on and you put it behind you and you carry on. And then a few years ago, Jerome Wilson, I was in the corner against Jerome Wilson. My kid Serge Ambomo knocked Jerome out, and I knew straight away, as soon as Jerome landed, I knew that weren't good, that was bad. Went to see Jerome in hospital a couple of times. So again, you start asking yourself questions like, bloody hell, is it, I've said this on numerous occasions, sometimes I feel like the Grim Reaper of boxing, because there's not many people been involved like I have at that level with so many tragedies. And then obviously to finish it off, Scott, all that with Scott and everything. I think that with Scott is the thing that set me over edge.
Yeah.
That's when I ended up thinking like I'm cracking up. I don't know. How do you know if you're cracking up? You don't. But you know something's not right. And again, Scott won. He won. The thing I always tell people about Scott as well is he was a fitness fanatic. He was a chef. He didn't eat rubbish. He was good at everything. And nicest kid you could ever wish to meet. We won the fight. If you'd have looked at Deck, his opponent, on the night, and looked at Scott, Deck had bumps and lumps, and Scott didn't have a mark on him. He did a great interview after, and there were a lot of people. I remember when he did the interview after, he lifted himself up and sat on the side of the ring, and at one point he went like this with both his hands and rubbed his head. But he'd just done a 10-round hard fight.
Yeah.
So when he was rubbing his head, somebody took a picture of him as his hands were across his face like this, and more or less said, look, he's going through it now. But who knows? We got back in the changing rooms, and then he started to say, I've got pain in the back of my neck. But he was all right. He was fine. Then he said, passing me the bag. So somebody passed him his bag, and he had a drink of Lucozade. And then shortly after, he vomited. And I could smell he spewed up in the shower. But he was still all right. And I'll tell you how all right he were. The doctors came and went. And they said, look, we want you to stay here for an hour and we'll come back and check that you're all right. Don't leave the venue. So I went, all right. So we sat in the changing rooms. Doctors kept coming in. I think they come in twice. And then at one point they said, right, we're going to send you to hospital. We think you might have got concussion. And he was still complaining about the back of his neck. So I rolled a towel up. He laid on the floor. His dad was there. Everybody was there. And I put a towel over his eyes. So I thought maybe it's the fluorescent lights that's causing him. So he laid there. Then the paramedics came and said, we're taking you to hospital. You've got to get on the stretcher. And this is how all right he were. He says, I'm not getting on stretcher. He says, there's people out there come to watch me box, my fans. He says, I'm going to walk out like you want to do. And the paramedic says, no, you've got to get on the stretcher. He says, no, I'm not getting on stretcher. He said, I'll walk to the ambulance. But, after talking to him, he said, look, it's best if you get on the stretcher, which is what he did. And then we went to hospital, set off to hospital, and that's it. And then, like I said, my life, his life, well, everybody's life's changed since then for the worse. And like I say, it's 5 years now. I've struggled. I can't imagine what his family, his girlfriend, his mum and dad, and his brother's gone through, because it's such tragic circumstances. Like I said, you'd sit there and watch a fight and you see the fighter get beat up, so to speak. You'd expect that to happen. When you watch some of these fights on telly where, I don't know, your Gatti and your Wards and your Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier's, you'd expect people like that to end up in hospital because of the brutality of what they've just engaged in. But with Scott, like I say, he won the fight. He boxed brilliant. The last round, he was tired. They ended up on the canvas more through tiredness. And when he was complaining about the pain in his neck, I thought maybe as they've wrestled each other to the floor, he's pulled his neck in the last round. And, you're not going to be like no spring chicken after doing a 10-rounder anyway. So even when we were in changing rooms, I just thought to myself, he's just had a hard 10 rounds. But we never thought that would happen. So, yeah, so it's looked like, say, 5 years. There's days when you think, bloody hell, something just comes over you like a wave. And you think, God, that seems like yesterday, that. And I often think to myself, if I'm struggling, imagine what his girlfriend went through, his mum, his dad, his brother. I know I was the one in the ambulance with him. But like I say, it was somebody's son, somebody's husband, somebody's boyfriend, somebody's brother. So if I'm having it rough, they must have had it rough at the same time.
So what had happened then to him? What injury did he sustain?
Yeah, a bleed on his brain, usual thing. With boxing, it's you get a punch on head. It's usually a bleed on the brain or something like that. Like Jerome. Luckily, Jerome managed to get to the hospital in time. There were a lot of things went wrong with Scott because obviously the fight was at Doncaster Dome, so the ambulance took us straight to Doncaster Royal Infirmary, when really it's not a neurological hospital, so we should have gone to Alamshire. So there were a lot of, what can I say, there were a lot of, questions to be answered. Again, we had the court case, they had the court case, I got called up along with everybody else. And, you got to remember the doctor has got the blink of an eye to make a decision. So you're in an ambulance in Doncaster, and the nearest hospital is Doncaster. So automatically, like I would, like you would, like anybody would, straight to Doncaster. If, there was some questions saying if we'd have gone straight to Alamshire, things might have been different. Who knows? I don't know. I just look back at that journey in the ambulance as a journey from hell. That's how I describe it. And then there's the aftermath. You sat in the hospital a few hours before, you'd got a referee raising your guy's hand saying you'd won. We were the underdogs, remember?
He was strong one deck as well. Come forward.
He'd already beat one of our guys.
Yeah, strong as well.
Sorry, he'd beat two of our guys. He beat Danny and he beat Carl. So he was very, very strong. But we got the tactics right with Scott. Scott could box, he could jab and move, he could keep out of the way, they were the tactics that we had, keep it long, just box, just deck's very strong. And it worked. And then, like I said, one minute you're having your guy's hand raised and you're so happy, you can't even, like I said, we were the underdogs, we weren't supposed to win. Deck was the unbeaten guy. Everybody thought Deck were going to win. So to pull off a result like that, it were even better. So you're in the change rooms, you're ecstatic. You're like, you can't be so happy. And then within a short time later, you've got some doctor walking in and telling you, oh, sorry, he's died. So you go from high as a kite to as low as you can possibly go.
Really, mate.
Yeah, you
can't get any lower.
And
it's awful.
It's, your head, I'm not smart enough to know about what happens like that, but you can't take it on board. It just don't, it's like, what? 1 minute we're in, I remember, I'll tell you how bad it was. Carl Wilde dropped me off because Carl were in the hospital with us, and we all left our cars in various places the night before. Rather than going in each car, we said, right, I think I went in Carl's car, I can't remember. So we all left his cars in various places near the gym to pick up on the way home. And when I came out of the hospital, for life of me, I can't remember where my car was. I could not remember where I parked it. It was just a blur.
Yeah.
And so you kind of like retrace your tracks. Where's my car? We've all done that when you come to a car park, a big multi-storey car park, and you go, has somebody nicked my car?
What floor am I on?
No, I'm on the wrong floor. I could not remember for the life of me. So me and Carl were sat there, and anyway, I remember finding it on Bottom Road, where it were, and then I remember driving up our road. You drive to the top of the road from the gym, you turn right, and it's the tram tracks. It's a journey I've done for 30 years next year. And I remember driving up, turning right, and driving on tram tracks and thinking, what you doing? It was early hours at morning, and I just drove through Hillsborough, past the old swimming baths, on the tram tracks, and then thinking to myself, bloody hell, I'm going to get a ticket or something. And everything was just like, like in La La Land.
I'm not surprised though, mate. It must have been so tough for you. And like you say, it must be even harder for his girlfriend.
For his family, girlfriend, mum, dad, brothers. And then to make it worse, I got home, and my next door neighbour usually puts my bin out for me every whatever day bin men come. I remember looking on my CCTV cameras, I see these people walking up my drive. One of them was my next door neighbour with wheelie bin, and a load of other people. I'm thinking, who are these? It were like early hours at morning, and they were press, people from newspapers, wanting to know. And I went out and scratched my head. I'm thinking, there's a lot of people for one wheelie bin. And Mick, my next door neighbour, was saying, who are these? I went, can I help you? And they went, oh yeah, we want to, can you give? And I went, no, just do one. And then it was like that for next, I don't know, for a long, long time.
But the main thing is like what we're talking about here. We mentioned him. We mentioned obviously Scott with Carl, and we mentioned him with Billy a bit as well. I think it's important for him to keep his name out there. And keep talking about him. Yeah,
and what's important to a lot of trainers, and I often said this to the members of the board. You go on a course and they tell you this is what you should look out for in a fighter. if anybody starts doing this or if anybody starts doing that, if your guy starts, moaning about headaches or vomiting, they are the signs that you should look for. But the difference with Scott, until we'd been in changing rooms for a couple of hours, them signs weren't apparent. So if we'd have jumped in our car and just drove straight home, like you normally do, you get changed, you have a shower, you pack your bags and off you go. If the paramedics or the doctor had said, look, I want you to stay here for an hour, if we'd have jumped in our car and just drove home, and this is what I said to a lot of boxing trainers on the course, the signs aren't always there. You can't always see the signs because till we'd been in changing rooms for a few hours, Scott was fine. Like I said, he just complained about his neck. We could have been driving back to Sheffield and, who knows, I don't know. But I tell all trainers now who are on training course, it's not always visible what's going on. So be very, very vigilant and make sure that, if your guy is complaining about headaches, if he starts vomiting, find out where the nearest hospital is because you need to get him there ASAP. You're better off going to hospital. I mean, funnily enough, I often tell people this. When Sam Sheedy boxed at Pons Forge for Commonwealth title, exact same thing happened. So unbelievably same. The doctors came and said to us, stay in the changing rooms, we'll come back. And then they came back and said, right, we'd like you to go to hospital. We'd like to get checked out. So we jumped in the ambulance. We went from Pons Forge. I remember saying to the ambulance driver, which hospital are you taking him to? He went, Northern General. I went, well, why are we going up Parkway? The ambulance driver didn't know, so we're going up Parkway, and then we came off. So anyway, we went to the Northern General, and we spent a few hours sat in Northern General until the medical staff said, look, we checked him out, he's all right, then you can go. And I thought, at the time with Scott, I thought that's exactly what's going to happen. I'm going to be getting in at silly o'clock at morning, but if everything's all right, you don't mind. So there were so many comparisons with what happened with Sam and what happened with Scott, except obviously a bit more fatal with Scott. But we just stayed in hospital with Sam, and then he come round and they just said, yeah, we find that you nothing's going on. You can get yourself off. But so any boxing trainers listening to this, always be vigilant and make sure that your fighter is responding, he's not vomiting, he's not complaining of headaches, because you never know what could happen. So
definitely, mate, definitely. Speaking on Sam Sheedy though, mate, some talent, wasn't he?
Yeah, he were. He, like I say, area champion, Commonwealth champion, boxed up British title, lost on he lost, I don't know if it was a point or something, to a good kid. So, and he's another one who's been with me from being a baby. And he's now doing what I'm doing. He's a trainer. He helps me out in the gym. So what I like about it is a lot of my guys, your John Fuchs, Monso, Wale, there's other few. I'm not going to mention everybody because I'll forget somebody. They've gone on to be trainers in their own right. So they've come and learn at my gym and then, took it and opened their own gym and doing really well. As a boxing coach, trainer, manager, whatever you want to call it, mentor to these guys, when you see them doing that, it gives me it puts a smile on my face, if you know what I mean. So I just wish more boxers, ex-boxers, would stay in the game because we need ex-boxers in this game. We need people who've actually been in the ring and done it, to try and teach the kids, this is what it's like, this is what. I just wish more ex-boxers would stay in the game.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You often ask them.
I always ask them.
He always says, are you going to, stay in the sport because you've got a lot to offer?
Yeah.
And quite a few just don't, do they? They're not.
No, they're just not. We've a lot of go through. Like, it's obviously we're mostly journeymen in Glyn.
Yeah.
But I always say, are you going to stay in the game?
Yeah.
Are you going to pass on your knowledge? And a lot of them will say, well, no, I'll pass that chapter. It's part of my life. And we do get the odd one or two. Like, you probably know Liam Wright, won't you?
Yeah.
Liam
But it's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
When boxers retire, like me, I retired, and then I thought, what am I going to do? So I'd been boxing since I was 16. You retire at 33. I'd not done nothing. I'd not been to college. I'd not got a job. I got no experience. What do you do? Go in the job centre and look on board. Jobs for ex-boxers. There ain't no jobs. Mm-hmm. So then you drop into all them stupid jobs like I did, things that. So most boxers, what I try to say to them is now, while you're boxing, learn a trade, learn something. So when your boxing finishes, and it can finish at the blink of an eye, you've got something to fall back on. Like our parents, that era always used to say, oh, you need to get an apprenticeship when you leave school, so you've got something to fall back on. Well, I'm saying that to boxers. While you're boxing, learn a trade, learn something, so that if your boxing career finishes overnight, you can then continue, rather than like what happens to lots of boxers.
How did gym come about then? Was that always something that you wanted to do?
No. If you'd have said to me, or Brendan Ingle, if you'd have asked Brendan me, I'm probably the least person that he would ever have put down to become a trainer, because I remember seeing things happen to Brendan and how people were to Brendan, and I thought I couldn't do that. He'd say things, and I think, bloody hell, if that were me, I couldn't stand that. So back then, I didn't have the temperament to be a trainer. But what happened then? I retired, and I was in wilderness for about a year, wandering around what am I going to do. Like I say, signing on, which was the most embarrassing thing you've ever done. You've gone from topping bill at Sheffield City Hall and Octagon Centre, and then you're signing on, and it's like people. I'd see people and they'd like, "What are you doing here?" And I did earn some money, but when I retired, I was saying I didn't have a pot to piss in. I didn't have nothing. I was broke, honest. I'd borrow money off my mother until my next fight, and then pay her back, kind of thing. But all of a sudden, your career's ended. And then you've got to get a job. A job doing what? What can I do? So I remember walking up Lancet Road, and there was a building being refurbished, and it said opening soon, boxing gym. So I thought, I called in. There was a guy there who owned a nightclub in town called Steve Baxendale, and he says, we're opening a boxing gym. I went, oh. He says, I said, who's going to be running the boxing? He said, well, we've got a kid called Andy Marlowe doing the kickboxing. We haven't got nobody doing boxing. How are you fixed? And I thought, well, it's not like I've got a choice, is it? I ain't got a choice what I can really do. So he gave me the job then of teaching boxing. And all I did is what I'd learned at Brendan's. And that was it was a big moment in my life. And then after a year of doing that, I thought, you know what, I can do this. This is something I find in myself, I can do it. So I looked for my own place, my own premises. I got a gym at Wyburn. In Sheffield, opened a gym, rickety old place, and then again stayed there a year, then looked for another place, and then another place, and eventually, after 2 gyms later, I had a gym at Wyburn, and I had one on Carlisle Street, and then somebody said there's an old school at Hillsborough, it's got a big hall in it, and it's shut down as a school, Burton Street School. You want to have a look at it? So I called in, had a look at it, and been there ever since.
Yeah.
The first show we did 1994 at Pittsmore Working Men's Club, and like I say, next year we're having a 30-year celebration. So we've had some good times, bad times, more good times than bad times. But when I walk around the gym and I look at the posters and the pictures on walls, you look at them and you think, look at that, and then you look back and you think, oh bloody hell, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and you think, oh my God, where's time going? And I put this post on Facebook a few weeks ago. We had a guy in the gym, a lovely bloke called Frank Middleton. He was a gentleman, he was a trainer. And I remember he was about 80-year-old, and he was sat on bench, and I remember him saying to me once, the older you get, the faster time goes. And when he said it to me, I never really paid attention to it, but I remember him being sat there, like I say, I think he was 80-odd at the time. And when he said it, I never paid no attention. But now what I find myself doing is I'm reflecting back and thinking, you know what? When he said that, it's all coming to the front now. He was right, he was bang right. And it is, to me, it seems time's going so fast. So fast. So you've got to make the most of it, because you never know what's around the corner.
Same. Well, 30 years ago, me and Mark would have been 12 or 13-year-old.
Yeah. See?
Just to make you feel a bit better.
Yeah, it makes me feel great. Thanks for that. Thanks for that, you pair of nice people.
Oh, yeah. I'll tell you what, though, mate. I mean, when we were getting you on, we were quite excited, Glyn, you know what I mean? Because you're a bit, obviously, high up the rankings, so what we usually do with some thingies, but, 30 years next year is a massive achievement, mate, and you must have had some cracking fighters come through that gym, mate.
God, listen, I've had guys come through that gym who, even names that you don't even know, and you look at them and you think the potential that kid had to go on and do bigger and better and whatever. And I'm not saying a lot of them go by the wayside, but you just look at kids. One of the things that Brendan used to say to me, and it's in my book, I put this in my book, and I remember him saying it. And when I say it to myself now, I can see him saying it. He used to have this saying, and he'd say, I've seen it all before, but with his Irish accent. I've seen it all before, you tick. Like he always used to call you a tick. So in his Irish accent, I can always hear him saying, I've seen it all before. And now I'm finding myself now looking at kids. We've got a kid in the gym at the moment. Everybody's looking at him going, oh, this kid, he's 17, look at him, and he's absolutely brilliant. And you know what I find myself saying? I've seen it all before. exactly the words that Brendan used to say. You know, he could get a girlfriend, he could start drinking. He's just, I don't do that no more. I just look at guys and enjoy the journey. If it comes that he is a top prospect, oh well and good. The problem you've got in this game is people whispering in other fighters' ears. You know, telling them, oh, you don't want to do this, you want to do that, or I'm better than him, or he don't. Listen, and I tell guys in gym, I say, look, wherever you train, whether you train here, there, this, you've got to train. It's simple. You've just got to train no matter where you train. I know some guys occasionally get a bit stale doing the same thing over and over, but it is just repetition. It's like any job. It's repetition. You go to the gym, you shadow box, you warm up, you do your pads, you do your bags, you do it. That's it. And that's it. You know, you can't reinvent the wheel. A lot of trainers these days are reinventing the wheel or trying to reinvent the wheel where they have fighters doing different things. But when it comes down to it, you know, it's been done. You know, I just said to fighters, you've got to do your road work, you've got to train, you've got to do your exercise, watch what you eat, go to bed, live right. There's not much else you can do. The only thing that's changed in boxing for me that's made a big difference over the last, 20 years is nutrition. Because back in them days, you know, people didn't know about food. So whereas these days, people are more clued up about nutrition and what food you should eat and how to make weight. And I mean, when I was boxing for area title and I was overweight, I went in sauna.
Yeah.
You know, I went in Sheffield Valley Bath sauna to get weight off. If you had a fighter doing that these days, you'd be called up before the board. And they'd say, you know, you can't do that, you can't, because of how dangerous it is to dehydrate. But I remember, boxing for area title, and on the day, getting weighed in and going in Sheffield Valley Bath to the sauna to lose weight.
It's not good.
It's not
a good thing to do, mate.
No,
is it?
definitely
but
not.
Like, when I did my second licence, like that were a big thing, the nutrition and you know, what would you, if you wanted to refuel your box, what would you give him a quick race? And it's all important stuff that they need to know, Glyn.
It is. You know, it's just about hitting bags and sparring.
It most certainly is.
Nutrition's a big thing.
And I think you're right there. That has definitely come on from years and years ago. Like we had Peter Dunnan, didn't we? And Peter Dunn was saying he'd go running around bloody park in bin bags.
I know. See?
And
just to make weight.
I dare say it's for the better.
Yeah, it is for the better. The things that I like in boxing now is nutrition, the medicals. I know they're paying it next. Some guys, like say, you can go for, guys now are failing medicals right, left and centre, and these brain scans are so, they're on it. You could have a brain scan or whatever, MRI, and they are expensive, but you're better off having that than another fatality like with Scott and things. So, you know, I've had guys fail the medicals on failing brain scans, and it's heartbreaking. But it's better than the alternative, innit? You know. Yeah. So
we had George Rogers in a couple of weeks ago, and he's gone through a bad time.
Yeah.
Something to do with his detached retina or something like that, and it set him really over edge. He was really gutted. He got a lot of goals, but he's come back last week. Well, the week before, didn't he? After 6 months off and got a draw on road.
That's all right.
Do you know what I mean? So, but like you said, it's better to be safe than sorry.
I wouldn't want anybody to, not just me, there's other people gone through it, but I wouldn't want to go through what I've gone through again. So, and I wouldn't want anybody else to go through it, you know, with Scott, because, like I say, it's changed my life. Losing anybody in them sort of circumstances, it's going to change your life. But it's in the manner in which it happened. You know, like, it's different if somebody's got a disease or they die in hospital or, you know, they're old or they get run over. But when somebody dies in the manner in which Scott died, it's just so, I don't know, it's just so, there's no closure to it. 1 minute he's having his hand raised, then next minute you've got somebody saying, oh, no, he's died. And I don't know, it's just an horrible, horrible situation to be in for anybody that's been in that situation.
But it's tough, mate, and luckily they are few and far between.
Yeah, thank God.
Touch wood for that, mate. But let's go on to let's go back to your career, mate. I want to know what would you say your biggest high is in your boxing career? As a fighter yourself.
As a fighter,
have you got any that stick out, or?
Yeah, I've got loads. You know, people often ask you, what's the best memory, what's the best thing you've done? I could write you a list of things that are high on the list. One of was boxing on the Eubanks Watson Bill.
Yeah.
You know, I think there were like 20,000 odd people there at White Hart Lane, open air stadium. Obviously not come to watch me, but being on that kind of show, that were a high point. You know, boxing in Sheffield at City Hall. You know, I walk past City Hall on a lot of occasions these days and think, bloody hell, I topped the bill there once. Yeah. And another thing, I walk past that and I think, I were on so many of Errol Graham's undercards in City Hall. I remember coming out of the City Hall on numerous occasions, and there were a nightclub not too far away called Josephine's. So you'd box at City Hall, and then we'd all end up in Josephine's. And when Bomber boxed at City Hall, it were an occasion. It weren't just a boxing show. Everybody'd turn up. And it's different now because obviously Sky and big bills. But when we were in Sheffield and Bomber were topping bills, there weren't no boxing around this area. So he was like a world-class fighter boxing at Sheffield. And so them occasions like that, you know, topping bill myself in Sheffield, topped the bill at the Octagon. I've got so many eyes with my boxing career. You know, if I could look through my record and tell you things that I've done boxing abroad as many times as I did, places that I'd never have ever been, and things that happened while we were there. I've got some funny stories. I could tell you so many funny stories about when you're abroad. Maybe not for this podcast, but I've got so many funny stories, and there's certain stories, you know, you don't want people to. I don't want not bad stories, but you know, certain stories that you don't want people to hear.
A lot of the funny stories seem to come from abroad.
Yeah,
you know, we had a couple with Andy Townend, and I know Johnny Nelson. Obviously, I read his book, and he had a few funny ones. Did you get looked after when you went abroad?
Yeah, you know, again, I've been abroad and got looked after unbelievably. Yeah, and then I boxed abroad, and you've got the shit end of the stick sometimes. And so I think, you know what, they're doing this just to unsettle you. So they put you in a shitty hotel. Yeah, you know, they do everything, which I understand. It's all part of the game. And then I've been on other shows where you get looked after like unbelievable, top hotels, looked after brilliant. So, but it's all part of the game, you know. As Brendan said, I've seen it all before.
Some journey, mate.
Seen it all before.
Going back to Bomber though, biggest talent you've had at gym?
Yeah, without a doubt. You know, you've got to remember that you're looking at Errol, and you were in an era where the guys above him are people such as Marvin Hagler, Tommy Hearns, Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran, and then Bomber Graham. So Errol were up there with the best of them. You know, he sparred with Duran, and it's a shame because if he were around, I know hindsight's a great thing, whatever you want to call it, but just imagine Errol Graham being around now. You know, what with some of these fighters at middleweight. Don't forget, everybody goes on about when he got beat by Julian Jackson, but you know, people seem to forget about when he boxed Mike McCallum. They look at Mike McCallum as one of all-time greats. Errol only lost to him by that much because he got a point, took him for whatever, and that, Albert Hall. So you got Errol Graham boxing Mike McCallum, and then don't forget on his last world title fight, he was nearly 40-year-old when he boxed Charles Brewer. Yeah, what an occasion! That's another occasion. We're in Atlantic City. Lennox Lewis is the top of the bill. You know, we're training in Miami Beach. This is all in the book. You know, we're training in Miami Beach in the gym with Lennox Lewis and Manuel Stewart. And I'm training Errol Graham. And then, you know, on the undercard. And I remember the MC, Michael Buffer, is announcing the guests in the crowd. And one of the guests he mentioned were a guy called Jake LaMotta, who I'm a big fan of because we had him over twice. And then you see Michael Buff saying in the crowd over the Saturdays, Denzel Washington. And you're thinking, here's me, a little scrote from Sheffield, and I'm looking down and you've got celebrities like Denzel Washington not watching, obviously come for the Lennox Lewis fight, but it's like, it's surreal. You know, like I said, training in Miami Beach. There's a picture in the book of we're on a boat with Lennox Lewis, heavyweight champion at world. And so these are stories, you, like I said, they're all unbelievable. So I've had so many eyes. I couldn't name them.
Yeah, it's good though. Like I said, you had a couple. Obviously, we mentioned a few lows there, but again, there's some great stories.
Oh,
God, you've had some good. And like you said, I think you can say there more highs than lows. Mate,
God, definitely. There's more highs in my life than lows, and there's highs where people. An example that I always use to the kids in the gym. Of, you know, you look at Bomber, and Bomber were not natural talent, but he were a talent. But I used an example in the gym to a lot of the kids of Clinton Woods. I always use Clinton as an example because he wasn't the most naturally gifted like Sugar Ray Leonard type of boxer, but what he made up for with it, hard work, he got a big pair of coconuts, he got a good chin, big heart. And you know, first time I've worked with Clinton, he was boxing, I think, a 6th rounder at Pine Grove Country Club. And then he ended up boxing a kid called Darren Littlewood, who was with Brendan. So it was like me versus Brendan as your old manager. Yeah. So that was first title fight I worked with Clinton. And then he went on for his last fight, you know, he boxing in Miami, Florida, on ESPN television to box at world title. So you go from Pine Grove Country Club and his final one. So I always use Clinton as an example in the gym of kids. Hard work pays off no matter what. You know, you've got to have a big heart, dedication, hard work, and that's what Clinton were. He was a good fighter. He was a terrific fighter, honestly were. And he beat some great fighters as well on his way up. And he was involved in some cracking fights.
He was towards the end as well.
Yeah, some brilliant fights. And like I say, big heart, great chin, and a big pair of coconuts.
Yep, and like you said, I think what you just said there is that hard work does pay off for someone. Clinton is. We've said that a few times about a few fighters. You know, who's gone through it and they've gone back to drawing board and they put the hard work in.
Exactly.
And it's made a big difference.
The thing is, well, a lot of fighters these days, they lose and fighters think it's a career-ending loss.
Yeah.
Well, Clinton lost and he still come back and, you know, he lost to David Starry for a Commonwealth title, I don't know, 1990 or whatever it were. He still come back and became world champion and ended up boxing a peak Roy Jones, Glenn Johnson. He was a good fighter, a very, very... not underestimated because he weren't underestimated. I don't think he were, but you know, today it seems you've got to be shouting your mouth off and be telling people, turning tables over and things like that. Clinton weren't that kind of fighter.
No, he's a funny onion, is Clinton. He's proper cool in here, and he's down to earth, and he calls a spade a spade.
Exactly, and he's like us now. He's putting time into boxing. He's got his own gym. His gym's doing very well. I see him around at the shows. It's brilliant. You know, it's great because you'll go walk into a little amateur show, a working men's club, and you bump into Clinton Woods, who you were in corner with in Miami for a world title. You're chitting and it's brilliant. I love it. So that's why I like enjoying going to these amateur shows. It's great.
Yeah, you won at Johnny Musgrave's, weren't you, a couple of weeks ago, weren't you?
Yeah, oh dear, Johnny Musgrave's. Yeah, it's great. Johnny Musgrave boxed a kid from our gym called Lee Edwards.
Yeah.
Lee, you know, like I said, one of the best jabs. If you said who's the kid you've had in your gym who's had the best jab ever, it's Lee Edwards. Problem is, he only had a jab. He didn't have a right hand. He used to win fights just by jabbing. And he boxed Johnny Musgrave. And again, some great memories there.
Yeah, he's a good kid, is Johnny. He always said, I wish I'd have gone on road now.
Yeah.
I think he'd have been good for that, you know, Johnny.
Well, like I said, I were on road. And the only reason although I box in Sheffield and I were a big ticket seller, when I were in Sheffield, I did sell a lot of tickets. It were easy for me to box on road because, you know, Brendan would ring you up and say, I've got your fight, do you want to box? And I'd go, oh, yeah, all right. And then I'd start training, or not training, so to speak, because training weren't one of my better things. And I used to say to Brendan, just ring me up when you've got me a fight and I'll start training. But it let me down. That's why I'm big on training now, because one of the things that did let me down was the fact that I wouldn't train.
Yeah. I
hated it. I still hate it now. Look at me. Luckily, I don't put weight on and I stay all right, but I hate training. It's horrible. But
you do a lot of road work?
I don't do nothing, me. Listen.
No, do you send your fighters to the road work?
Oh, yeah, tell them all you've got to get on the road. That's the big thing. You've got to do road work. We meet every Saturday morning at 8 o'clock in the park and Matt Moyt takes them on a run. They've got to do road work. It's a main thing. That a lot of guys who beat me, I often say this, no disrespect to them, but they didn't beat me because they were better than me. They beat me because they were fitter than me. And there's nothing worse than losing to somebody who you're better than, ability-wise, but he's got a better engine than you. And after 5 rounds, they're always knackered. And that's, again, guys beat you who are not as good as you, but they're fitter than you.
They don't get many who like road work, though, do you?
Oh, God, I hate it.
You know what? We had Harv Mitchell in. We interviewed Harv Mitchell last week, went to Birmingham to see him. Yeah. And it's first person who said he loved road work.
Did he?
He loved it. He said, I used to love just running. And I says, you know what? I said, I've interviewed some fighters and I've talked to a lot of fighters, you know, British champions, journeymen, and nobody apart from Harv. Yeah. Maybe Carl Sampson.
Yeah.
Like doing that road work, but you need to do it, don't you? I think
you've got to run. You've got to. Listen, it's like having a big engine in a car. It's all right. We can all do one round like me. I was all right for 1 round, 2 rounds, 3 rounds. After 4 rounds, I was blowing. It's like say you've got to have it. It's like having a big engine in a car. You just off you go in it. Yeah.
What? So let's go back to you've not even had your first professional fight.
Yeah.
What's the goal?
Earning some money.
Is that what it was?
Yeah. I weren't working. I'd been at Brendan's, like I said, since I was 16. Didn't really have a job. I might have had a job doing whatever. Always, in Brendan's words, ducking and diving, but always managing to just get by. And it were all a strange situation how we all ended up boxing pro at Brendan's, because what happened is the amateurs then said you can't train professionals, but Brendan were. He was training Mick Mills and Chris Walker, John Kelly, these kind of guys. And anyway, the amateur boxing organisation then found out, so they banned St Thomas's. They banned the gym, banned Brendan. So Brendan then said, well, if they're banning us from the amateurs, might as well all turn pro. So there's a picture in my gym, black and white picture, got me on it, Walter Clayton, Bomber, Brian Allison. So we more or less all turned pro, and the rest is history. And it's the best thing that ever happened, because once then we turned pro, it's different now. You know, amateurs and pros can train together. You know, they're all training down at EIS. Anthony Joshua trained down there for a while with Robert McCracken. So it's different now. So amateurs and pros can train together. But back then, you know, Brendan said, you can do this, you could do this. But my goal back then was just to earn some money. I didn't want to work. I didn't want to get a job. The thought of getting a job, it sends shivers down my spine. But now I work more hours than any job.
I bet you do.
I was thinking that, mate. It never stops that phone, does it? And
But there's another saying that I like. If you find a job you enjoy doing, you'll never go to work again. So I found a job that I've enjoyed. And although on one side, on my personal life, it kind of like wrecks it, you know, because it doesn't sit well with a relationship, you know, your kids. We had a party when I had my book a year ago, and my son got up and did a speech. Both my kids were there, and my son stood up and he says he don't mind that as a kid growing up, I spent more time with other people's kids than I did my own kids, because I was always at shows, I was always out, I was always driving somewhere, I always seemed to be, you know, so it doesn't sit well, your relationship doesn't sit very well when you never know where you're going to be. You know, it's not a 9 till 5 job. Like my job now, I go to work at 3 o'clock and I'm there while 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and then I'll go to a show. So it's hard to, like I say, keep a steady relationship with your wife, girlfriend, whatever, and your kids. Because, like I said, my kids used to come home from school at 3:30. I'd just go. I'll see you when I get home. They're in bed when you come home. Yeah. So it's hard. It's an hard life. It is.
It is tough, mate, isn't it? So we've gone from Bomber Graham being one of the biggest talents. Wouldn't waste of talent, you see. We could have done better.
Yeah. No,
We've talked about this.
I'll tell you now straight away without a doubt, it's John Fuchs.
Yeah.
If John Fuchs, you know, could have applied himself a little bit, he did train hard, you know, but he also partied hard, if that's what you want to call it. He always had a problem with his weight. His weight seemed to be a big issue because he liked to drink. But I've seen Fuchs do things as a boxer, you know. I've seen him, we went to America, we were in Las Vegas, and they'd been out the night before. We didn't know they'd been out the night before. When I found out, I was steaming. So me and Matt said, right, we'll show these here. So they were sparring at Top Rank Gym, and I thought, he's having it, Fuchs. He should know better. So all the lads did 1 or 2 rounds, 3 rounds, and then Fuchs, he looked at me after 3 rounds, was enough to say, is that it? Am I done? I went, you're staying in, you. So I made him stay in, sparring with these Americans. Anyway, he knew what I was doing. I thought, you little bastard, you're staying in, you. So they'd been that night before. Anyway, it kind of like bit me on backside because he stayed in and he just old manned his way through it and he got through it. And so without a doubt, I'd say John Fuchs is the biggest, not waste of talent, because he did well. He did very well.
I think I aimed that quite wrong. When I said waste talent, I didn't mean somebody who was useless. I meant somebody who you thought should have achieved more in the game that you had in the gym.
Ability.
So I apologise for that, Fuchs.
Yeah, he had the ability to achieve so much more than he did. But he liked to go out with his mates, have a drink, enjoy himself, and like I say, he's doing really well at the moment. He's, continuing what he's learnt from being around me. I see him do things and say things, and it's like I said to you earlier, I'll say something to my guys and I hear Brendan in the background like that. I've seen it all before. Now I see Fuchs saying things that he's heard me. So it's brilliant that it's just had a knock-on effect and it's brilliant. So yeah, Fuchs without a doubt.
So we're also on an MBE now as well, mate.
Got an MBE.
How did that come about then, mate?
We've raised a lot of money for charity in the gym. At the time of getting the MBE, we've raised over £350,000. It's a lot more than that now. Wow. For various things. And we've got certificates in the gym. We've took kids all over the world. We've took them to Las Vegas on numerous occasions, Miami, New York, Tenerife, Rome. We've took them all over. So part of the reason that I got the MBE is because of the work in the community. I just want to say Johnny Nelson's just received his as well.
Yeah.
We're both products of Brendan Ingall's gym. So, I've known Johnny for a long time. He's just got his, I think it was yesterday.
Yeah, I think it was one too. Yeah.
So he's just received his for the same thing, work, So I got mine from basically work in the community. And it's, for me, as a kid who left school, and on my last report, it says, I've still got the report, it says, with the attitude that he's got, will only lead to disaster in later life. So all of a sudden, here I am now. I've got, and the teacher who wrote that's still alive. I seen him at B&Q once, and I thought, should I go up and have a word with him or stick it on him? No, I just thought. So yeah, to receive that, it's good. And the other reason it's good is there's other people in Sheffield received it as well, but there were only me and Brendan at the time in Sheffield getting it for boxing. There's a few other guys who rightly so have got it now, but at the time, there were only me and Brendan. So for me personally, to have the same accolade as Brendan Ingall, it's kind of like, bloody hell, that's good, that, innit? And it cheered me up no end. Me and Brendan had fallouts. We didn't speak for a little while, mainly down to me, I think, having been a bit of a loose cannon when I was a kid. And I were, and I don't mind putting my hand on my heart now and saying, I weren't the nicest person when I was young. I fell out with so many people. I'm trying to make amends now, making friends with people, and thinking it's time to put all that behind you. I had I just had a bad temper, or I just used to fly off at handle and fall out with a lot of people. Like I said, me and Brendan didn't speak for a long time. Luckily, before he died, we got together, shook hands, and it was great. Went down to his gym. It were a big moment for me because I trained there for all them years, 16 to 33. So to walk in 30 years almost later, I recognised the building. I recognised people in it. I thought this is a place that I came to for many, many years, but it was so strange. Whereas at one time I'd walk in, it was like home. But when I walked in to meet Brendan that day, it was different. It was just the same building, the same. Only difference it was the passage of time.
Yeah.
I'd become a different person to the person I were. Probably Brendan was the same person that he'd always been, whereas me, I'd gone from this young lunatic kid to a grown-up adult, whereas back then I weren't that. So it was really a big moment in my life going back there to see Brendan then, and shortly after he died. So it was good. It put a lot of demons to bed. Like I said, we shook hands. I thanked him for everything. And all the bad things that he had gone through and the fallouts, and, it kind of like it was pointless. Because what is the point of it? There's other people in Sheffield that I've fell out with and not, through boxing or whatever. And at the end of the day, when you look back now, I just think to myself, was it really worth it? People you don't speak to, and is it really worth it at the end of the day? Not really. So looking back, I do take a lot of the blame myself because I know I'm still not the easiest person to get along with. So, but I look back now and I think, all that grief and fallout, is it really worth it? It's not, is it? It's just pointless. And when at the time, you just stood there and fought to the death and thought, this is, I'm not backing up. There's no backup in me. I'm right. This is it. Now, as a older bloke, you look back and think, hey, just pathetic, weren't it, really? So,
Gym's still thriving then, mate?
Gym's still thriving. Got some great kids in. I'm not going to name them because somebody will say, why didn't you mention me? But the gym's buzzing. I'll mention one kid who's coming up next. We've got a kid called Keenan Wainwright, a great pro. He's boxing in Malta in a couple of weeks. So we're looking forward to that. Got another couple of good kids. I'm not going to mention them because, like I say, I'll forget and they'll get face on. But yeah, Jim's doing really, really well. Everything's good. My life's good at the moment. But like I said, what I've learned to realise is, yeah, I've got a good life at the moment. Everything's sound, but at blink of an eye, it can all change. I don't mean with boxing. I mean with everything. It seems and I'm not doom and gloom. I'm definitely not doom and gloom. I try to be one of the happiest people, but at blink of an eye, everything can change. So, if you're enjoying life today, just enjoy it because tomorrow's another day and you never know what's around the corner.
Yeah, put it behind you, mate.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever happened yesterday, put it behind you, shake it off and dust it off and
get on
go
with it.
again.
Exactly.
Like you said, we all have tough times, we all have good times. And,
what's that saying? Tough times don't last, but tough people do.
Correct.
And it's right, isn't
yeah,
it?
it's a good one. I mean,
Yeah.
And like I says, everyone will say, "Oh, good things never last," but same as that, bad things never last either.
Well, good things never last. It's lasted for me.
Exactly, mate.
I'm a product of Brendan Ingles' gym, me. So, and I hope that John Fuchs and people like that can be a product of my gym and go on to do better things like I have. I've been very, very lucky. A lot of people have helped me out in my career. Like I said, when I retired, didn't have a pot to piss in at 33. Didn't have no prospects for a job. Done some stupid things that I look back on and think, what were you doing then? You need your head looking at. But luckily, come through to the side. And I don't know if that's a testament to just having the determination to get through to the other side, or just luck. I don't know. Or is it a bit of both? Is luck, fate? I don't know.
I think it's more determination from your side, mate, to move forward and never give up. To be quite honest,
up. That's the attitude you need when you're boxing. Don't give up. We've all been knocked down. We all get knocked down, but I've been knocked down loads of times. But unless you knock me out and count me out, I'm getting back up. And I think that's life. You've got to have that attitude in life. I think as well what happened with Scott, with me, and that period where I went through going to see a psychiatrist, which I'm not ashamed to say no more, it made you realise that there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
You might not think so at time, because I remember thinking to myself, what are people going to think about me, Glyn Rhodes, ex-professional boxer, boxing manager, trainer, but he's going to see a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
So you've got this stigma about going to see a psychiatrist where you think people are going to judge you and think, oh, you're a nutcase or whatever. But I would, as I've said in the book, I would say to anybody, if you're having a hard time, seek somebody to speak to. It's no good trying to do it on your own. She gave me a lot of scenarios which did help me a lot, and I still use them to this day. And I've spoke about it this morning. One of the things is, she said to me, when these things keep coming back, flashbacks or whatever, if you take a football into swimming baths and push it under 1,000 times, how many times will it pop back up? 1,000 times. So how do you deal with it then? Well, you've got to deal with it while it's there, because if you keep pushing it away, all it'll do, keep coming back. So different people learn different coping mechanisms, how to cope with different things. And there are people out there who will help you and will give you scenarios and coping mechanisms. So if you're depressed or you're fed up or you've got something going on in your head, seek help. There's nothing wrong with seeking help. I think speak to people, speak to your friends, speak to anybody. I'm saying that, speak to your friends but sometimes you don't want to speak to your friends. That's why I found it easier to speak to somebody that I didn't know. Me picking that phone up, I only did it because my mate Matt, he told me, he went, well, I've been to see a psychiatrist, and I went, what? And this is a man's man. He's hard. I went, you what? He went, yeah. He says, and so when he told me that, I kind of thought, well, maybe that's the way forward for me, because I'm not getting better at this. This goes away for a day and then it comes back, and then every night 4 o'clock waking up. So while I've got the chance here, I will say to people, if you're going through a bad time, seek help. Don't be hard. Don't think you're tough and you're hard and you're weak. If you're not, just seek help, because it does help. Yeah,
I'm big on mental health, and we always mention it. We do a little bit of a thing on ours of Andy's Man's Club on every episode, saying it's good, for people to open up and stuff like that. There's one story I do want to ask you, Glyn, if it's true or not. And if it is, you must be a legend, mate. Did you kick Naz out at gym?
But didn't literally kick him out at gym. But I tell you what happened. Naz left Brendan and he came to train at my gym, obviously alongside everybody else. And then one day I got a phone call saying, can I go to the office? I went up to Naz's office and his brother said to me, look, we want the gym 4x5 just for Naz. And I went, that's not happening. You can't just have my gym solely for Naz as you. What I'm going to say to all the kids who come to him, you can't train while 4x5 because Naz is training. And I also thought to myself, why not train alongside everybody else? It'd be good for young kids to train at side of him. He's only a kid from Winkerbank, same as everybody else. Nobody were getting in his way when he were training. So why would you think, you can't train alongside everybody else? So basically I said no. I says, no, you can't have gym 4x5. So basically what they did, there's another room outside of my gym and they rented that off to school, put his own ring up in there and had that kind of like as his gym. And he used to lock the door so none of the kids from my gym could go through. But like I said, I don't care who you are. Nobody's in my gym, nobody's bigger than anybody else. Nobody's bigger than the gym. So whether you're Nassim Ahmed or whether you're Muhammad Ali, everybody comes to that gym for the same thing and we're all the same. So I didn't physically kick him out, but what I said is no, that's not happening. You can't have a gym.
Well, I know when you're saying it, when we had a little talk earlier, when you said, what's the most important fight in your gym? And you always said, don't you, the next one?
The next one, who's got the fight next? It's no good putting all your eggs in one basket and saying this guy's the most important guy in the gym because you might have a guy boxing for a major title as a professional, like Keenan's boxing for a title, his next fight 10-rounder, but for little whoever 11-year-old kid making his debut as an amateur, that's his world title fight. He'll remember that forever. I remember my first fight, so he'll remember that just as much as Keenan boxing a 10-rounder. So it's important to him as well. So he's the most important person in gym. That's it.
And that's the way it should be, mate. And you know what? That's I like that saying. Yeah. I mean, we all piss in the same pot. We all come in world same. We all
and
go out the same.
Nobody is bigger than the gym. That's a saying I have in my gym all the time. Nobody is bigger than the gym. So don't come down there thinking, the gym won't survive without you or him or me. Or the gym is it's like, I describe it to a lot of people as like a tree. So you've got the root of the tree and then you've got branches coming off. And we have, we'll go on training camps and we'll go on holidays and we do shows and we do nights. But if we didn't have the base, the trunk of the tree, we'd have none of them. So nobody's important compared to the gym. The gym is the first and foremost. Otherwise, there's nothing happening, is there?
Yeah, fighters come and go, mate. The gym will always stand.
Exactly.
As you can say, 30 years, mate, next year.
Yeah,
big party coming up, mate.
Royal Victoria Hotel, black tie event, Sunday afternoon. We've got a guest speaker. He's not confirmed yet, so I can't tell you who it is. It seems a long way away, but it'll come around like everything does. And it's going to be nice. It's going to be nice, and it's also going to be a bit strange because Scott worked there as a chef.
Right. I never knew you were a chef, He
was a chef. He worked there. His girlfriend works there as a masseur. So it's going to be a bit strange going there. Scott also had Scott's family had Scott's wake there after the... and we've had shows there since, parties. So we've got a lot of history. Sheffield Boxing Centre has got a lot of history with Royal Victoria Hotel. So it'll be nice to have a 30-year anniversary there next year.
Yeah, and it's fully deserved, mate. And I'm sure there'll be 40 coming up before you know it. Like you said, time goes so fast.
If I live that long. Yeah.
So one question I do want to ask you, Glyn, is have you got any road warriors in at the minute at your gym?
Yeah, we've got a couple of guys who, want to go on the road. Main one who boxed last week, Zane Clark. Zane is a great fighter. He's a good fighter. But obviously, some guys sell tickets, some guys don't. Some guys have got the personality where they're able to sell tickets. They've got a big fan base, and it's easy for them to sell tickets. But then you've got other guys who, they're good fighters, but they just haven't got a fan base, or they just don't want the hassle of selling tickets. They just want to go on the road and box. And so Zane is a good one like that. One of the things I always say about boxing and journeymen, the journeymen are the backbone of the British boxing. Because if you didn't have these journeymen or guys who were jumping at last minute to take on a prospect, so to speak, boxing won't be able to function. There's certain guys, one of the best ones, I always use him as an example, Peter Buckley. He saved many promotion. I used to promote and, you'd have a phone call the night before the show and you'd ought to miss a beat. It's a bit such and such pulled out. One of the guys, I remember this, me and my missus at the time, we were sat around our table sorting the money out of the envelopes. Billy Boyle was topping the bill at Don Valley Stadium. The phone went, Billy's opponent had pulled out. So we had to bring a guy in from Latvia, I think it were. So it's, you're walking a thin line, making a profit or I would never promote again. And I always use Billy as that example because what happened is we ended up being up financially. Billy's opponent pulled out. We ended up being down, just at a blink of an eye like that. We had to get in an opponent because obviously Billy weren't boxing. All his tickets had come back. All his fans would have said, well, we're not coming. They're only coming to watch Billy. And after Billy fights, they all in pub to, and Billy along with them. So, like I say, a blink of an eye, you can be making a profit, and then next minute you're making a loss. So, without journeymen, boxing would not be able to function.
Yeah. And like you said, he could sell some tickets, could Billy, couldn't he?
Yeah, a big ticket seller when he first started. All lunatics just like him, his fans, when he used to, they're all head cases, just like he's not the smartest kid, is he?
Billy.
Old Billy. But his fans, they were unbelievable, chanting and cheering, and it were good. Like I said, some of them nights we had at Don Valley, they were good nights. Had some good nights with Billy. And like I said, good fighter. Boxed cleverly, fought Commonwealth title at York Hall, an iconic venue. So yeah, I had some good times with Billy.
He did, yeah, a good lad. And
he also moved up my street, a few houses up from me, which I think my property went down in a bit of value once he moved in. But he's moved out since then, and
it's gone back up again.
House prices have gone up.
We've got moving now around that area now.
Since Billy moved out. yeah.
But it's good to see you giving a shout out to journeymen, because obviously that's what we're about, mate. We are a bit different, and we like to get that side of the corner.
We can all look good when you're Anthony Joshua and when you're Tyson Fury and when you're these top draw fighters. It's great. But we are the guys below, who are willing to jump in and make the numbers up, so to speak. Boxing won't be able to function.
Yeah.
I'm interested and there might not be a difference, but is there any between journeymen back when you were starting compared to now?
Yeah. I'll tell you what it is. When I was boxing, right, there weren't no people coming from abroad. Now there's lots of fighters coming from, Eastern Europe and things like that. You can ring up and get ring an agent and say, I don't know, you get guys coming from Latvia. When I was boxing, I never heard of fighters coming over from Latvia or things like that, which is good, because if you're having a problem with your promotion and you need an opponent for somebody, it's easy to get an opponent now because you just get somebody from Latvia or wherever. When I was boxing, there weren't that many fighters coming from abroad. I always boxed abroad, but there weren't that many fighters coming here from Eastern Europe, whereas these days, a lot of fighters and a lot of promotions, you can go to a show and on one side of the bill, they're all from Eastern Europe or, somewhere around Europe. There's more fighters these days from Europe than there were when I was boxing.
There's a few good ones knocking about, though, mate,
yeah.
There is. There's some tough nuts about,
But your problem you've got, if they come over here and upset the apple cart, so to speak, they don't earn them. We had a guy box, a kid come over here, a Russian kid. We'd never heard of him, nobody ever heard of him. And he beat one of our guys. Since he's beat our guy, he's not done nothing, because he's a danger man. He's very, very good. I've got a couple of kids in my gym, a couple of Russians. One of them had over 140 fights, and he wants to go on the road. But the problem is, people look at his records as an amateur and look at him, and he's a tough kid. They think, forget that.
Not risking it.
Not risking it. Give him a wide berth. Yeah, so sometimes you can be too good for your own good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, with me just starting out then, Glyn, as a second, right? I might have the biggest challenge for the year, mate.
Go on.
I need to learn how to wrap hands. Can that teach me?
Yes, I can. But there's only one way you learn to do it.
And that's do it on...
Like everything else. I always said to the kids in the gym, how'd you get better at boxing? How'd you get better at playing football? Play football. How'd you get better at doing hands? You'll mess it up at first. I remember, I'll give you a quick story. I remember when Richie Wenton boxed up British title, there was a guy who trained in Bradley Stone, Jackie Bowers. He died now, but I'm friends with his son, Neil. And when you're taping hands up for a British title fight, their trainer watches you and you go in and watch them kind of thing. And it can be nerve-wracking on occasions. For instance, when I had to go in and watch Marco Antonio Barrera having his hands taped to box Richie Wenton, my backside was squeaking like that. I'm in this room with all these Mexicans and I'm looking like I'm going to get filled in. So one of the pressures when you're taping hands is when they send their man in to watch you do it, making sure you're not doing anything that you can't do. You can only put tape up to the knuckles and that kind of thing. I remember when I was doing Richie Wenton's, I'm doing the bandage and Jackie Bowers was stood in the background watching me, and he was a true boxing person. I remember doing it and I dropped the bandage and it just rolled to the other side of the room. No. And I thought, so then you've got to abandon the hand wrapping and roll the bandage up again. And Jackie's just stood there looking at me thinking, what a silly he is. But it's because it's putting pressure on you, having somebody watching you do it.
Well, I find that pressure a bit. I mean, I went on road with Jake Pollard a couple of weeks ago, didn't we, Scarfe? Scarfe threw a prop-in bar up downstairs.
Yeah.
He got the easy job.
Like
but he's good at that.
Yeah.
He's good at that, taking photos.
Yeah.
And I was there helping, tape Jake up and, first time when I was panicking and shaking a bit.
Yeah.
And behind me, I've got Carl Greaves there,
Watching.
and just watching me, and he's there just like doing it virtually. I'm looking, and I thought, you bastard, Carl.
Putting pressure on you.
I'll never do
Putting
that.
more pressure on you.
And he's just there, and he's saying, he was just there like rolling, like making it. That he just said, getting the bandages ready. And I thought,
scary,
you bastard! I don't swear much. I thought, you
Yeah.
bastard, Carl. You make it look so easy.
Well, imagine doing it for a major fight. Like I said, I remember one of the worst ones were Richie's fight against Barrera, when Barrera were at top draw.
Yeah.
And then I remember Bomber against Brewer in Atlantic City and Clinton, like in Miami Beach. The world
No
title
bigger
fight.
scenes than them, mate.
Don't get bigger than that. And so when you're watching, when their trainer comes in to watch you, and for some reason, I don't do this, but they always come in and they're always miserable. Like you're going to, like, if they don't watch you, you're going to put a fucking horseshoe in the glove or something.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, why do you have to be miserable? Come in, have a laugh. You've got the inspector watching you anyway, and then you've got the assistant trainer watching you. There's no reason to be miserable. Just watch him do his hands, you go and watch him, and that's it. But it does put a lot of pressure on you. The bigger the fight, the more pressure. So you'll learn to deal with that.
I think it definitely made me a bit shaky.
Yeah.
But I got some good reviews on it, and I did all right.
Practice on me.
Well, do you know
Practice,
what?
that's what you do, practice on somebody else. I tell you, one of the worst ones is when you have to do somebody's cut.
Yes.
I remember the first time I got asked to do a cut, I can tell you now who it were, where it was. It was a guy called Steve Pollard, a boxer from Hull, who's sadly dying now, and in my age. And he said to me one night, I've got a guy boxing in Hull, and he went, Glyn, will you go in my corner and do my cuts? And I shit myself. I thought, I've not done cuts before, but this is my chance.
Yeah.
So I thought, yes, here we go. So I got my little silly swab, like a Q-tip thing.
Yeah.
And he comes back to the corner with one cut, and I thought, right, here we go. Jumped up with the adrenaline, jumped in, did the cut, comes back next round, got another cut. I thought, and under my breath I said words like bloody hell, what do I do here? So I jumped in, did, adrenaline cuts, did both cuts, went out next round, come back with a cut under his eye. I thought, what the do I do here? Luckily, the referee stopped the fight, and I thought, thank for that. 'Cause how'd you deal with 3 cuts? Obviously, you deal with the ones above if the blood's running in the eye, but they're all bad cuts, so the referee stopped it anyway. But that'll be your next bum twitching one where you have to deal with cuts. But
That is going to have to be the
try
one.
not to panic. Like I said, if you're in a corner with a fighter and you're panicking, they're going to panic. So what you've got to try and do, you remain calm, even though inside your arse is twitching and you are panicking, but try and externally try and just appear to be calm.
I think that's the thing with me, Glyn. I mean, I think your mindset's amazing. When we talked on phone, and I said, I was doing my seconds. I said, hopefully I'll pass it. And first thing you did, you shouted back down phone to me. What do you mean? You mean when you pass it?
Exactly.
And
Listen,
that's it.
when?
But there's one thing about me, if it did happen, I don't think it'd faze me, because I think I could talk a tortoise into beating a cheetah in a sprint race. The only person I doubt is myself.
Well, that's what you've got to do, basically, in this game. Be a blagger.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people in this game, that's all they are, they're blaggers. You've got trainers who are blaggers, boxers who are blaggers. I mean, how many times you see a fighter get hit on chin and he'll shake his head to his opponent and go, nah. You're blagging it, when really, when a fighter gets hit on chin and he shakes his head to say to his opponent, that didn't hurt. Guess what he's saying? Fucking hell, that hurt. So he shakes his head and go, no, that didn't hurt. So it's just it's a game of blagging. That's all it is.
But it's good to move forward. I'm glad I'm involved in it now on the small hall circuit. And like you said, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, mate. I know you've enjoyed coming on.
I have. It's been great. Like I said, getting a chance to talk to people, it's a little bit of therapy. Like going and talking to people, telling people, if people can listen to this and know what I've gone through, myself personally, people might look at me and think, oh, he's an ex-boxer. I'm not tough or anything like that, but, it might help somebody. If it helps anybody, it's been worth coming.
And I'm sure it will do, mate. And it's been an absolute pleasure having the show, mate. And
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming on,
Thanks
mate.
for having us.
All the best.
Hey, thanks for having us.
The Journeyman Cave is produced by James Proud. Music by Ryan Carrier. Special thanks to Rhythm Inc. Studios for hosting. All views expressed are of the guests only. The Journeyman Cave and host bear no responsibility for any opinions given. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter @The Journeyman Cave.